Hi there, welcome to another edition of Talk Stocks. I'm your host, Keir Reynolds, and today we're lucky enough to catch up with Shawn Khunkhun, President and CEO of Dolly Varden Silver Corp. Trades on the TSX Venture with the ticker DV, as well as a fairly new New York Stock Exchange NYSE listing with the ticker DVS. How you doing today, Shawn?
I'm doing well, Keir. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for joining me. It's been sort of a very busy space, sort of in the mining and metals sector here. I'm sure you've been pushed and pulled in a million different directions, so I really do appreciate you giving me a bit of time. As you know, we've been kind of following your company. Been a shareholder for a couple of years. We've done a few of these sort of interviews, and the good thing is that each time we've kind of done them, your stock has been worth more than when we were on last time. So let's get a bit of a catch up. I think the last time we spoke was in November, so got 7 or 8 months of things that have happened. It's been a flurry, bunch of stuff. So why don't we get into it? First question, for viewers that haven't seen our other 3 or 4 videos, could you just give a quick sort of elevator pitch on what Dolly Varden is?
Sure. Before I do that, I just want to say thanks for being a shareholder, and you're far too kind in terms of, look, there's a lot of volatility in this segment of the market, and depending on when you look at a company, when you enter a company, when you exit a company, so I think you're being very kind, but I appreciate it. And I appreciate you as a shareholder, and I mean that earnestly. But back to your question. So what is Dolly Varden? Look, what you really have to appreciate is Dolly Varden is silver, and silver is scarce. And we've identified a large silver resource in a safe jurisdiction. And we've got past producing high-grade silver mines in Canada, in Northwest BC. But what we've done is we've done a lot of consolidation, and we've brought a lot of old mines together into one package. And what that's translated into now is we've gone from being a small exploration company into being a company now that is really growing. It's really advancing. It's on the cusp of moving from advanced explorer to developer. And we've outlined a very, very high grade, large silver and gold resource in a safe jurisdiction.
Excellent. Well, since we were sort of trying to get this scheduled, you guys were able to sort of announce the financing, raise some additional capital, sort of shore up your treasury even further, give you some more runway. Based upon, could you just give us a quick overview on what you recently raised, pricing, and then maybe kind of the cap table now sort of post the raise?
Sure. So we announced a $25 million financing. And we've elected to fully allocate the over allotment option. So we're going to close next week on $28.75 million, which net of fees will take our treasury to about 55 million Canadian dollars. So that's a pretty healthy treasury for an advanced exploration company. And in terms of the pricing, there were 3 components of pricing. There was a what we call a hard dollar component, a traditional flow-through component, and a charity flow-through component. And just to keep it really simple, the average dilution for the shareholder is at about $5.50 a share. So what I really celebrate is in the company's history, we're being financed on the highest possible price that we've ever done in history. And what's really where we've been really fortunate at Dolly Varden is if you look at the $150 million that we've raised over the last 5 years, we haven't done a down round of financing. Every round's been, so, financings by their very nature are dilutive, but we are trying to minimize that dilution by doing these accretive financings. And then in terms of who our investors are, 30% of the company is currently held by 2 corporates. One of them is Hecla, which is America's #1 silver producer. Hecla is approximately a 15% shareholder. Eric Sprott is a 10% shareholder. And then institutions make up about 50% of our ownership pie. And that leaves about 10% in the hands of the public.
Thanks for giving us an overview on that. That was going to be my next question. So thanks very much. Now, you guys have made some news here recently. You guys just launched your 2025 exploration program. Could you give us a little? Could you give us a bit of an overview? What's that going to entail? Are you going to be doing any drilling? How many rigs? What sort of meters? Blah blah blah. Could you maybe give us an overview?
Absolutely. So on May 15th, we started drilling, and we started with 2 drill rigs. By the end of May, we had a total of 4 rigs turning 24 hours a day. And as a result of this financing, we're just in the process of securing a 5th rig. And the idea here, the goal, what does success look like for Dolly Varden in 2025 through a drilling and exploration standpoint? We've got a number of areas on the property that are demonstrating the potential to further expand and grow deposits. So what we're doing is we're stepping out from known mineral deposits and we're trying to see how far they expand and extend. So success would be increasing the mineral footprint. We're also looking to update our third-party 43101 compliant mineral resource estimate. So after this year's drilling, we'd like to take some of this data and some of this potential expansion, and we'd like to wrap a larger number. Like we currently have about 150 million silver equivalent ounces, and that's made up of just precious metals. It's half silver, it's half gold. Success would be increasing that number. But there's, and not to get too technical here, but, the way resources are calculated, there's different categories. And really simply, the closer space drilling you do, the more confidence you have in your estimate. So in addition to increasing the total number of ounces, what I think success is going to be, and where most companies fail in the mining industry, is not doing enough infill drilling. And so if we can really have that confidence in not only ounce count, but grade from a de-risking standpoint and from a confidence standpoint, it's going to be a much more valuable project.
Excellent. And just to familiarize a few people that, again, maybe are not super, they haven't done a lot of work on the story like I have, or like you do every single day, moving your company along. What are a few of the targets that what are some of the names of the targets that you're going to be drilling, and have you drilled those previously?
So look, the way to really look at Dolly Varden is you've got a silver-rich south, and then you've got a gold-rich north. And that's where the real economics of the project land today. So the silver that we're focused on right now is known as the Wolf vein. Okay. And that's been really a big part of the company's success and growth, because it's demonstrating an ability to identify new veins, expand them, extend them. Just to give you an example here, this was a nothing vein a few years ago that we now have over 1.1 kilometers of strike length. And we're currently stepping out hundreds of meters and trying to expand the vein. So we got the Wolf, we've also got the Moose, and we've got a number of these veins where they're located about a mile apart. And so you're going to see results from Moose, from Wolf on the silver side. We've got the Homestake deposits, which are very gold dominant. So, we're in an environment right now, Keir, where you need 90 ounces of silver to get 1 ounce of gold, right? So in that current silver to gold ratio, if you find a little bit of gold, it's worth a lot relative to silver. So we've got tremendous economics today in the gold-rich north, and we had some phenomenal results in the 2024 program that we're following up on. And so we got Homestake, we got the Wolf Moose, and then there's a third component to the exploration, and this is the one that it could really move the needle, right? Like, if as an investor, why are you here? You're here because the company has been moving from $1 a share to $5 a share. Now, how does it continue on that trajectory? What can make Dolly Varden go to $10 a share? It's going to be on discovery. And so when we go into targets like Red Point, Big Bulk, if we're successful at these targets that have zero value today, the market's giving us zero value because they're unproven. If we can demonstrate they are like wolf, moose, homestake. I think it's going to continue in the trajectory of the share price. But I was just talking to one of our biggest shareholders, fund manager, and he said to me, he said a very important thing that I had never thought about. He said, how many silver drill results do you see on a regular basis? And I thought about that, and you don't see very many. Like we're not constantly bombarded with big silver discoveries. And what's going to be really unique about Dolly Varden is, I think we're one of about 10 silver companies that matter because of our market cap, because of our liquidity, because of the exchange we trade on, because of our resource, because of our grade, because of our location. So, and because we've got this $55 million treasury that's focused on growth, it's focused on expansion, we're going to be generating a lot of silver drill results. And for the first time in probably 14 years, and for one of 3 times in the last century, okay, and put this in, really put the exclamation point on this point. In the history of the world, silver has never ended a year above $35 an ounce. We're above $35 an ounce right now. And so my point to you is we're at record high gold prices. There is so few silver coasts. We are growing silver. That's an exciting time where you're cashed up. You've got some of the smartest investors in the space, and now it's drill season. Let's go. So it's a really fun time for us. And as somebody who's been around mining, exploration, development for 22 years, and Keir, I'm going to tell your viewers a little secret about me. I'm a closet pessimist. Okay, I'm conservative by nature. And I've never walked into a drill season excited. And I'm earnestly excited because it's our biggest budget, it's our most meters, and we're going after targets we've never drilled before. And what's great about that is, let's say we're unsuccessful, because it's exploration, right? Well, there's still this large foundational resource that gives us a value. And so to me, I feel like the downside risk is limited and the upside is unlimited. So it's a wonderful place to be in right now.
And just to, thanks for giving us an overview on that. And I share a lot of the same thoughts as you. I can't say it nearly as eloquently though. But just to give some of my viewers context, when you talk about like a wolf vein, veins, sometimes, we got veins and veinlets and things like that. You guys traditionally have been able to pull some pretty good widths, like some pretty unbelievably high grade, broad interval type stuff. Would you be able to just kind of talk about some of the drill holes that you guys, from 2024?
That is such a good point, because I'm very, very hyper focused on silver, and a lot of the silver that I study globally is it's very narrow. It's very, very, very narrow, high grade veins. And what's so unique about Dolly Varden is, number one, there's a term that it's referred to as daylighting. All of our deposits daylight, they go right to surface. And that's important. Like from an economic standpoint, the reason the Dolly Varden silver mine was the richest silver mine in the British Empire, the reason our Torbrit mine, and both of these mines we own 100%, was Canada's 3rd largest silver producer, the reason they were economic is they daylight, they go to surface. But most importantly, you're right, they're not narrow veins. They swell out. Torbrit's a vein that swells out to like 30 meters consistently. And so when you go to mine it, you can bulk mine it. And that's lower cost mining. Now, some of the big drill holes, like we had a hole where we drilled 93 meters of 357 gram silver equivalent. So on a heads up basis, it was about 200 grams silver and 2 gram gold. But we've had some spectacular intercepts, like 1,500 grams of silver, pure silver, no gold, 50. So 1.5 kilos of silver over 15 meters. And we're consistently hitting 20 meters of 500 gram material. And so what I like to, again, my conservative nature, looking at our current resource estimate, the average grade is 300 grams per ton, which puts us in the top 90 percentile for projects in terms of grade. So I like to focus on the averages, not the outliers. But it is a rich deposit. But what's more important than the richness is the widths. And what we're finding as we drill deeper is the grade is picking up and it's getting wider. And so as we continue to chase these deposits at depth, if past is an indication of the future, we should continue to demonstrate higher grades and bigger widths.
Well, I'm going to throw a little curveball at you. I hope you don't mind. I just thought maybe you could help educate some of my viewers on a point. You know how you've mentioned, like, hey, there's not a lot of silver companies. It's pretty small sort of group. But then you hear this term and it's thrown around all the time. And I'm wondering if you might be able to unpack it a little bit and sort of explain it, how it relates to you guys. Silver equivalent ounces. Those might not always be equal. There may be different qualities of that. Would you be able to sort of just quickly unpack that so that, because again, with silver starting to, this sort of like gold silver ratio, so silver starting to sort of move up, a lot of mention on silver. Well, there seems to be a lot of people talking about silver equivalency and sort of getting out there trying to be a silver company when maybe they're not. So would you mind unpacking that a little bit?
Yes, it's a really complicated question because on one hand, most silver that we get today comes as a byproduct. So really, if we look at global silver supply, which from a mining standpoint is about 850 million ounces a year, 75% of those ounces are derived as a byproduct. So most silver actually can be viewed in a silver equivalent because most of it's being thrown off of base metal mines like lead, zinc mines, maybe it's a copper mine, perhaps it's a gold mine. And now the challenge with coming out with a silver equivalent is when it comes to recoveries. Okay, the difference between a silver drill hole being reported as an equivalent and then when you go to mine this stuff, sometimes liberating the silver, when you have all these other metals, you only get 60% recoveries, 50% recoveries. So if and so it's very, very difficult. And that's why if you can gravitate to those 1 in 4 projects, which are primary silver projects. And what's interesting about those projects is most of them, like the number 1 silver producing nation on the planet is Mexico. Number 2 is Peru. So most of the primary silver is going to bring you to Mexico and Peru. Why I think Dolly Varden has sort of garnered more attention than other companies in the silver space is we have a primary, high-grade, large silver deposit in Canada. And that's really rare. And, but yeah, it is something to, when you look at like the silver demand, we are in the 5th consecutive year of a silver deficit. For investors going, okay, well, I see silver breaking out. Why is there momentum in silver? Well, why has the price gone from 15 to almost 40? And the reason for that is there's these industrial applications that need silver, but they're not asking for lead and zinc. They're not asking for copper. They're not asking for gold. So, a lot of the big silver cos that are out there hunting for projects are some of the CEOs that I've gotten to know that run some of these big multi-billion-dollar companies will joke, well, how many ounces of when it comes to like a photovoltaic cell, lead's not important, zinc's not important. We don't care about your silver equivalent. We want to know how much primary silver do you have, and I think that's a huge differentiator. It's a great point you've made in terms of the width and the pure silver nature.
Well, thanks for walking us through that. I think it's an important thing, and I'm sure you guys, maybe you could just kind of touch on some of the metallurgy that you guys maybe have done. Have you started doing some testing on that? again, you're primary, so it's less complicated than all these other things where there might be a lot of base metal. But with having sort of precious metal, gold, silver, have you guys looked at any sort of met work?
Yeah. And just for any of your viewers that are going, okay, what does that even mean, right? It's one thing to get the metal, to have it, to identify it. It's very, very hard, right? But the other thing is, can you liberate it? Can you remove it? And can you actually recover it? And so one of the things that we have a benefit from is the historic production. So for 10 years, one of our deposits is a past producing mine. So we have all those old production records for the 10 years that the third largest silver mine in Canada was operating. And what the recoveries tell us is we're in the high 88, like 88, 87% recovery, which is really, really good in the silver space. And then what we've done, it was actually in 2019, the company, not just wanting to rely on that historic data, wanted to validate through modern testing, and it validated it. The modern metallurgical testing that was done and completed in 2019 validated the 87, 88% recovery. So we are doing something this year, which is, we've brought gold into the company. Historically, Dolly Varden was silver. We added the homestake deposits. And what we potentially envision for the future is, a hub and spoke model where you're bringing both the silver gold at homestake and the silver at Dolly, and you're processing it at the same facility. And so this year we're going to be doing some metallurgical work to show, by mixing those two different ore types, and looking at how those recoveries work.
Great, thanks for walking us through that. So why don't we get on to a couple of other big items that you guys have kind of accomplished. The last little while, you've announced a few property acquisitions. You've really grown your footprint. Maybe you've been with the company since around 2020, if I'm not mistaken. Could you sort of explain, how that's changed since you've been involved? How many hectares you kind of started with, where you are today, and then maybe talk about a few of these more recent acquisitions in terms of properties?
Yeah, and what people have to appreciate is the original Dolly Varden Silver Corporation was put together, and it was really something that took decades to bring together. And there's a lot of work that goes into consolidating neighboring claims. Like, a lot of people are like, wow, look at all the success you're having at the Wolf deposit. Why did it take until 2021 with a project that first had its start in 1904? Why did it take 100 years? Are you guys that good? No. The answer is, if you look at Wolf, or even if you look at like Moose, a lot of these contiguous claims were not under the same ownership. So a lot of the success we're having is a result of systematic consolidation that's occurred over decades. And but let me simplify this for the viewer. 5 years ago, we started with 7,000 hectares. Today, we have 100,000 hectares of prospective ground in one of the richest mining camps on planet Earth, the Golden Triangle. We have gone from 2 past producing mines to 5 recently. Just in the last 60 days, the company's grown from 15,000 hectares to 100. The company's grown from 2 past producing mines to 5 just in the last 60 days. So we've gone through this dramatic growth in the month of April and May. And I'll tell you, it's my firm belief that it's not only the science and the discovery of expansion and extension, it's very, very important to grow through accretive acquisitions, regional accretive acquisitions. And it's been part of my growth strategy. And a lot of the deals, I've done 5 deals, Homestake, Big Bulk, Porter, Idaho, Kinskuch, and the MTB property portfolio. These are 5 deals that we did one in 2021, one in 2023, and then 3 in the month of May of 2025. Now, these are all deals I wanted to do on day one, but we had a 20-cent share price, we had no market cap, and we had no treasury. But after we had gained some relevance, after we had got our shares up to $5 a share, and we've raised $150 million, it was time to start being acquisitive. And so I'm trying to grow this company, and I'm trying to do it not too early in the cycle, because that can be very dilutive, and and the capital couldn't be there to advance it. And it's hard to time these things. You got to be a little bit early, but I'm really lucky that I'm surrounded by a brilliant team of geologists who work tirelessly, poring over data from the 1930s, from the 1950s, from the 1970s. Some were actually at the projects, like the SNP project. Rob Van Egmont, our VPX, was there when SNP was discovered in the 80s. Rob McLeod, our director and lead technical advisor, was born in Stewart and is a third-generation miner from the district. So we take that information. We listen to our Nishka partners who have known about the area and the mineralization for generations. And we take all that information, and we've taken advantage of the fact that other companies' access to capital isn't as great as ours in the junior space. So we've been very, very fortunate to have supportive shareholders. And look, my desire, my vision for this company, outside of Newmont, outside of Teck, outside of Skeena, I want to be the most relevant company in BC's Golden Triangle, and we're just getting started. We've got a very strong growth plan, and some of that is going to include drilling, and some of that's going to include continued acquisitions.
Great. Thanks for walking us through that. That's some pretty big growth here just recently, so congrats. I'd be remiss if I didn't sort of ask, Hecla, who's a strategic shareholder and who's sort of turned into recently a property vendor. Back in 2016, well before your sort of involvement, they took a run at the company, took a run at Dolly to sort of acquire it. I think a lot of people were sort of holding out that maybe under your sort of guidance, there might be another opportunity for them to sort of swallow you up and acquire the company as a takeout. It looks like Hecla have had some leadership change here not too long ago. Could you maybe just sort of comment on kind of your guys' relationship and thoughts are sort of around them sort of becoming not only being a strategic shareholder and continuing to kind of participate in that, but also now a property vendor, and what that kind of means for the company moving forward?
Well, I started our conversation by thanking you for you being a shareholder. And I got to say, all shareholders are equal, but I don't think the company would be here if it wasn't for Hecla. They were there from day one, supporting the company financially. I had developed an incredible relationship with the former CEO, Phil Baker, who was running the company for 23 years, who was really a visionary and who had an incredible desire to grow the company as he did, creating a multi-billion-dollar company, America's #1 silver producer. And so, and I think Hecla has been rewarded. They've seen a really big return on their investment. If we talk about, an average cost base, and I think there's a trust in our exploration team. And I think, them vending in the property for an increased ownership in the company really highlights that trust of our ability to access capital and our ability to make discoveries. So, they're an important shareholder, but, they're one of many. Eric Sprott's an important shareholder, all the institutions, some I can't even name, some I can. And Fidelity, US Global, Delbrook, Sprott Asset Management. They've all played a huge role. Fury has been an incredible partner that divested the Homestake project and has worked with us to really build Dolly into the company it is today. So the interesting thing in our business though is it's a game of elevators. There's ups, there's downs. And it's often, you take the staircase up and you take the elevator down, but you just don't know which companies are going to be there to, I've seen companies like Alamos grow from ideas to $15 billion companies, right? And I just think that, when I started at Dolly, at a $15-16 million valuation, we had certain goals. And I got to say, we've achieved a lot of the goals that we've set out, but now we have a platform and we're in a market and we're listed on an exchange where, I think we're just getting started here. And in our business, Keir, you know this better than I do, because, you've got a lot of experience. It's hard to launch. And once you launch, that's the tough part. Right. And then you have an opportunity to grow. Right. And so that's what we're trying to do. And there's a lot of humility amongst the group in terms of the capital intensive nature, the cyclical nature. But I think we found ourselves in a position with over $50 million in the bank in one of the hottest silver and gold markets ever. And we've got a project and a product that is really scarce. We've got the team, the targets, and the money, and we've got momentum. So, I'd love to come back on once we have some drill results, and I'd love to put them into context of what that means in relation to what we have. But ultimately, it's my goal here to continue to grow this company, and whether it's Dolly Varden or whether we're part of a larger entity, is I have one job here, and that's to respect the stakeholders and the communities that we're operating in, and number two, an ROI for my shareholders.
Great. Well, I just got one more question and then we'll let you hop. You've got a U.S. listing. You're not one of these sort of smaller sort of listings. It's a senior listing, NYSE American. Maybe you could just sort of walk us through sort of the thoughts in terms of doing that, and what do you have sort of planned? Is that do you think that's going to expand your audience and shareholder base? And anyways, maybe you can sort of comment on that.
Yeah, look, I think it's something like 93% of North American capital is centered in the U.S. About 60% of global capital is centered in the U.S. I take the Sprott umbrella that has grown from $2 billion in 2010 to $32 billion in 2025. More than 100% of that growth has come in the United States. I'm saddened to say that Canada has contracted in its role in mineral exploration. I just met with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia today, and they are becoming a dominant player in mining. I just think we're at a time where it's important that we're open to every investor. What I've learned, markets are always changing. You look at 2020, the advent of Robinhood investors, the advent of, the retail investor. I've seen it change so much in my career. We've gone from investment advisors to self-directed online accounts. It's really, really important that I can position the company so that when silver has its moment, the masses can buy Dolly Varden. And that was the rationale. And, so far we're up 40% since that move in April. And, we're just starting to see silver catch a bid here. So I think it's early days, early innings. This is the start of a major shift of capital away from other asset classes, including tech, into hard assets and commodity space. And the first benefactors historically have been the precious metals. We've already seen it in the gold price. We've already seen it in the senior gold producers. We're starting to see it in silver. Silver has gone from 100-to-1 gold-silver ratio a month ago to now 90-to-1 and starting to outperform gold. And, we've seen it in Dolly Varden. We've added about $2 a share in the last couple of months here.
Well, thanks for walking us through that. And Shawn, it's been great to sort of catch up. I'd love to get another time in the calendar here after you get some initial kind of drill assays out. So I guess you'll be kind of drilling all summer, and maybe towards the end of the summer, we'll start to see some of those things trickle in. So maybe we'll catch up in a few months. But anyways, thanks for walking us through all of that. And there we go. That's why Dolly Varden should be on your list if you're looking for a primary silver co.
Well, appreciate the opportunity, Keir.
Thank you.